It is an important model for Audi because it signals a departure from its past sedan strategy and introduces the brand to a very different kind of buyer. So let's meet the A3. We are just outside Budapest at the magnificent Karolyi Palace. Now the thing with the car, with the A3 sedan, that a lot of people are going to enjoy is the fact that it allows people access to what's undoubtedly really pretty automotive design. A lot of people have wanted to step into this territory. I mean, look at the car, just the way it looks at you. Have to say that's aspirational. The downside to that, the styling gets really ubiquitous, and so sometimes people have to think twice when you see an Audi coming down the road. Hang on, what model is that? So sure, you're going to suffer a little bit of that here because the front grille, the way the styling on the bumper has been done, is very akin to some of the other sedans. You do get a little individuality though, and that's of course coming from the headlamp cluster, the LED signature. There's a little ridge here in the metal on the hood, which I have to say is really nice and smart. It implies a little bit of a sporty element to the car as well, and also makes the car look a little bit different, if you will, from the hatch. Especially here in Europe, that is going to matter. In India, not so much. Now, the other point that I noticed about this styling, and it took me a while to sort of get used to it, took a while for this to grow on me, is this negative surface that you see here. By negative, I mean typically you have wheel arches where whether it's a bulge or whether it's a straight line, it always comes outwards to imply sportiness. Here, what you're seeing is that the metal has actually been punched inside, and it's different. It certainly does add its own sporty dynamism to this fender, and yet makes the car look light and lit, not heavy. So I think that's a nice little touch, something that I have to say is very different and pretty intelligent too. The size of the car is again something that's going to be debated because, you know, you don't want to imply that this is too cramped or too short or too small. You want to be able to feel that this is fairly generous, because to the Indian buyer, that will matter. So you get a wheelbase which visually doesn't look cramped, and you know, you're comparing to cars like, of course, the B class and the A class, which are hatches, but that's pretty much what you have in the market, right? Come around to the back, and again, nice taut sort of proportions, doesn't look too heavy at the back, very sharp, very smart use of LED tail light design. Once again, that's a typical hallmark of Audi design. Something else that I think people will enjoy. So overall, it's a typical Audi, and yet it has these smart, sharp lines like the one here on the side, which throw in that little bit extra, which I think people will certainly like. So it's very much an Audi. The car's proportions really work. It looks compact, sporty, sexy, and ready for action. I particularly like the rear 3/4 view. The question you all want to know the answer to, never mind the implication of space, is just how roomy is that cabin really? It's a different kind of buyer that Audi has tried to go after here, and so of course you're seeing younger, sportier elements. Our regular viewers will remember I mentioned some of this when we drove the hatch many months ago in Europe, but the point is that you see a few carryovers from there, and then you're also seeing certain things which are a little bit more grown up. So you get a sense of a really well-appointed cabin, and yet one that, like I said, throws in a little bit of that sportiness. I hope, and I hope really sincerely, that Audi doesn't give us beige and doesn't give us wood inserts. This is the package that should come to India, because you should try and encourage more and more people to drive this car themselves and not sit in the back and hand the keys to a chauffeur. So which is why the point of throwing in a little bit of this metal everywhere that you're seeing is a good thing. Now, in terms of equipment, you get pretty much what you would expect on an Audi. The screen pops up. That's a nice little touch. We're hoping that there's navigation on the car in India as well. The AC vents are something that's going to definitely attract your attention. It's cool how you can turn them on and off. And again, you saw this on the hatch. But remember, at that time too, I'd made the point, China market alert. I mean, that is a little gimmicky. It's a little loud. But you know what? A lot of buyers in India might actually like this as well, because it's so different and individualistic. You have drive select as an option. You have this very interesting finish on the metal inserts here as well. It's a little striped, matte sort of a finish. And again, the other thing which I hope that we get in India, have been making this point for some time now, we need to see some manual transmissions. We don't want only automatics. So this 6-speed gearbox, would love to see it. Start-stop is also pretty much getting to being standard these days. And then you've got the MMI system, which may be optional at the top end, but again, something that most buyers will appreciate. It pairs nicely to not just the screen, but there's lots of information that you see here on the trip computer, as well as the information display that's right here at the heart of the instrument controls. And then you've got controls here on the steering wheel. The rest of it is familiar territory. The S-Line interior is something that, again, you can opt for. It's still premature to say what of that is going to make it to the Indian market. Let's check out the space in the back. Now, of course, the back is not going to be as spacious as an A4 or an A6, right? But this is, again, I feel, a segment which becomes important because to the buyer who's looking to buy this car, it's not just about the back seat, and yet they want their family to be fairly comfortable in the back. 3 will be a little bit cramped back here, but for 2, no problem. The seats are fairly comfortable. In fact, I like the fact that this has fabric seats. Again, in India, the expectation is that we'll probably just end up seeing leather, but it will be nice, it'll be refreshing to have options like these, which are a little bit de-spec. You don't have to always have leather. There is space which is decent in the back. It's definitely not ample or very generous, but you know what? It's fairly comfortable, and you don't get a sense of being too cramped. AC vents in the back, again, from the Indian context, very, very positive. And of course, a drop-down armrest. One of my favorite features while sitting at the back, right? Well, don't worry, you got that too. A little bit of space for storage, and overall, I have to say, fairly comfortable here. Audi will primarily offer the A3 in sportier hues. There are 3 trims. The base version is called Attraction, and that's unlikely to make it to us. The top end has 2 trims, Ambiente and Ambition. Ambiente will have luxurious tones, and yes, the beige and wood trim are likely, while Ambition is the sporty package that you've seen today, all metal and dark colors. The A3 has a reasonably generous boot with a 425-litre volume, 60 litres more than its hatch sibling. Fold the rear seats and you get 880 litres. Now let's drive, shall we? The A3 sedan has several engine options. We have the cars, and we have the Hungarian countryside, and also the gorgeous streets of Budapest. Let's get on with it. I can tell you that this particular car is one that I almost ran towards this morning because I wanted to get my hands on it. Got lucky enough to do that, and I'm not just referring to the wonderful red color that I wanted in this weather. Oh no, sir, I am talking about the 1.6 TDI engine that's under the hood. The reason for that, I was curious about this engine, wanted to see how it's been tuned, how it's been mated to this car, how the 6-speed manual gearbox works with it. Why is that? Well, a couple of reasons. One, of course, it gives Audi a little bit of flexibility in terms of the kind of offering it would have with this when it comes to India, but also the transmission. You know, this could be the very first model that finally sees us getting our hands on a manual option. I hope that happens. As we are, in fact, speaking about this, let's also quickly look at the numbers. Now, they seem ample enough. You start comparing to cars like the A4, and you might suddenly think that, hang on, this isn't typical Audi territory. But that is the beauty, the fact that you are seeing a little separation, if you will, seeing a little bit of a difference between what's typically seen on these cars and what could be new and refreshing about this very compact, very sporty car. The 1.6, no doubt, has been more than adequate. In fact, it's been fun. There has been an almost sporty character to it. I've quite enjoyed it. Now before you can think it, this is indeed the same engine block as the Vento and Rapids 1.6 engine, but it's tuned and prepped really differently. The numbers may not have impressed you, but the drive will. It's peppy and very alive. And that's the thing with this car. Its size and appeal lie in experimentation to a certain extent. The petrol lineup is also impressive, and in fact, both the 1.4 and 1.8 TSI are offered with the manual gearbox as well as the S-Tronic auto gearbox too. I got a chance to drive both, and I can tell you, the car is just as agile and peppy. Now, there's plenty plenty of engine options that Audi is bringing to market with the A3 sedan, and that's a good thing because it gives us a lot of flexibility even in terms of what could be chosen for India. I hope, in fact, things are a little bit different and not cliched when it comes to those choices, but let's run you through them first so you get what I'm talking about. On the petrol side, there is the 1.4 TSI, interesting engine, one that I said that we should see more of in India. You do see a different iteration of that block on the Volkswagen Jetta already, and of course the power over there is about 140 bhp, and you've also got the much more powerful 180 bhp, that is the 1.8 TSI. On the gearbox side, there's of course the 6-speed manual, the 6-speed DSG, and then you've also got the 7-speed S-tronic, as Audi calls it. On the diesel side is where again things are interesting, because you've got the 1.6, the car I'm driving today, the one I have been saying works for us. And then you've got the 2-liter, again the engine that we know well from this lineup from Audi, and power delivery there varies from 105 bhp to 150 bhp. So again, plenty of options, again manual, automatic, gearbox options as well. But the whole reason I'm bringing you through all these iterations is simply to say that I hope Audi is brave about it. Audi India, I hope you're listening to me, because you have a chance here to really do something different. Don't go down the cliched road. Don't just, expect that the Indian buyer wants the 1.8 TSI and the 2-liter TDI. No, sir. We might just actually want to see something a little more brave, more inventive, more flexible, more exciting, which also lets you play around with different price points. So my recommendation, look at the size of the car, look at the kind of performance it gives you. I've had the chance to drive the 1.4 TSI. Trust me, that engine is fun on this car. That was a manual too, by the way. And then, of course, I've also had the chance to drive this car, the 1.6. More than ample, sporty, the 6-speed manual gearbox. Those are the options I would play with if I were thinking of which cars to bring to India as far as the lineup for India goes when the A3 drives in 2014. So, will Audi do it? Conventional wisdom says no, but I do believe that it's time to throw conventional wisdom out the window and elevate the Indian buyer. This is, in any case, not the car for someone who says, oh, you know what, the Verna has 120 bhp output. No, this isn't all about numbers, folks, and it's still really going to be a premium luxury offering after all. It is important for Audi to maintain the luxury quotient with this product, perhaps especially so here in Europe, because here in this market the comparison is with like products and not necessarily just segment rivals or the typical luxury rivals. In India that will be the case, but having said that, it does still become important to make sure that the car doesn't somehow just seem regular. So it is loaded with lots of gadgets, lots of features that come down or trickle down from the top-end Audis, the bigger cars. And so you see safety features like lane departure warning, there is active cruise control. You also have something new. There's an emergency city braking system, which essentially means that even if the driver is not paying attention at lower speeds in city traffic, it will stop. It will come to an emergency halt if there's a vehicle that stops in front of you or a pedestrian that crosses the street. Lift from Volvo's city safety system, perhaps. Anyway, point being that you do get all those options here on this car. And of course, the luxury options in terms of creature comforts are there too. What makes it to India, again, remains a bit of a question mark. I would like to see some options there for the Indian buyer to choose from. Once again, that means that Audi will be able to play with different price points. I really do hope that the company does take cognizance of that and does actually play with various price offerings, because you know what, it's just going to attract more people into the fold. Audi will offer Quattro all-wheel drive as an option, but that's only likely on the top-end petrol variants. Frankly though, having driven the 3 engine types, I do think Quattro is not really a must-have. And again, I'd rather not have it if it means a lowered price tag. Now the good thing about driving here on the Hungarian roads, we've got a good mix of country roads and highway. I can tell you the surface hasn't always been great, which is good because it kind of gives me an impression of how it would seem driving in India. It's not too stiff, this suspension, unlike the typical, German feel that you get, and yet it is stiff enough to be qualified as sporty. Audi has thrown in its new magnetic suspension system. The magnetic system, remember, adapts to the kind of surface that you're driving on, and it's a plus point. I think it's something that will help from the Indian perspective yet again, and also in terms of ground clearance, etc. There's no compromise that creeps into this. So overall, I think that ride quality and a nice balance with comfort levels is again something that seems to work, and that's true of the back seat as well. So it's a very well-loaded car. Audi has confirmed to us that it will arrive by this time next year, and it will be priced below 25 lakh rupees. That's exciting, and frankly, if Audi can do a base manual 1.4 TSI at, wait for it, 19.99 lakh rupees, well, that's going to blow everyone out of the water. Mercedes-Benz is planning to do something similar with its new CLA. It's almost certain that the BMW 1 Series, that's coming to us as a 5-door hatch soon, will spawn a 4-door sedan too. And the best part? Those cars are also destined for India. Yes, I have to say though, it is my hope that the Audi A3 beats them to it.